So I'll say this to start it. I've known Tom Izzo for 20 years, and this is a conversation he and I have had a million times. This is a point of debate that we have had over the course of time. I am a proponent of social media. I think that the good of it outweighs the bad. He strongly feels otherwise. You guys all played generally, at least at the beginning of the social media era and into it. Jay, I'm going to give you the first crack here as it's your sport and your thought. What did you make of what Tom Izzo said?
You know, I understand that he's defensive of his kids, and he should be. They're impressionable. But, you know, we got into an argument about this before, Greeny, about Kevin Durant and the use of social media and being impressionable. So, yeah, he might be Kevin Durant, but a kid has the same brain and operates the same way, especially if you grow up in this culture. And he also made a comment that it was interesting. He said, I get paid a lot of money, take shots at me. Well, fans are taking shots at everybody. Yeah. Social media does not discriminate. So if you're a kid paying attention to that, and these are issues, what I think about my daughter all the time, how are you informed? What are you paying attention to? And it's one thing for a parent to say it. It's another thing when a kid is out there in the world on their own trying to realize who they are. It's tough.
I appreciate that he aimed his criticism to the people who are tweeting the kids. Because so often we yell at them and say, why don't you get off it? Don't pay attention to it. And that essentially excuses the actions of the people who are misusing the platform. So I think that we have to accept, I didn't grow up in social media. It came once I was kind of an adult and I'm learning it. I'm using it to the degree that I need to. But these kids grew up in it, and it is the way that the world is changing. They have to operate on this. You cannot be off of it. In part, we talk about the things that they can benefit from while you're in college, while your platform is biggest, the connections that you can make, because, I mean, all those kids aren't playing in the NBA. The connections that you can make there, the relationships that you can make there are hugely valuable to guys who will be looking for employment outside of basketball.
I'm glad that you brought up that side of it, because I think at the end of the day, it boils down to, like, why can't people just be kinder? And maybe that sounds like a kumbaya thing. No, but seriously.
People tell me I should run into a utility pole again on my motorcycle because they disagree with comments I make on this show.
It's so ridiculous.
Like, that's what people say.
And I feel for these kids who are receiving that type, and they can say all day long they don't look at it and they don't listen to it, but it's not fair to them.
And what's different is that generational shift. Like, everybody grew up here, and, like, you know, if someone was making fun of you at school, your parents say, don't listen to it, don't worry about it. These are just words. And so we try to say those things and echo those same things to the young people today, but it's different when you grew up in this. And that is the social interaction that most of them have. It's more of a digital connection now, and so those things resonate a lot more. They're much more impactful than they ever were before. And so I understand why Tom Izzo is saying this, and I do appreciate the fact, like, I'm the one that's paid all this money. Take shots at me for us losing. Don't go after the kids. Come after me. Leave them alone, because they're doing a lot for this university and a lot of good for the program.
In the words of the great Charles Barkley, there's a lot of idiots on social media. You know, whether we like it, whether Coach Izzo likes it, this is not the only program going through it, and I guarantee it starts further back. It starts in high school. You know, I know these Sierra Canyon kids are getting hassled left and right. You know what I mean? So it's just something that we have to understand, we have to grow with, we have to understand when to utilize social media and when to not. But, you know, to your guys' point, we, as athletes, we hear and see everything. We may act like we don't care, we may act like we don't see it, but we have a lot of free time and we hear and we see everything. And this is something you just have to learn to grow up with, because it's not going anywhere. It's probably only going to get worse.
I think criticizing the people is important, not criticizing the players, understanding that the world is changing is important. But I think that the onus falls on the platforms to figure out a way to help regulate some of this behavior, because it's not just athletes, it's everybody. And you talked about your daughter, like I have 2 daughters and a son, and for young women, it's an entirely different environment. When you go on social media, the environment that exists is one that does not feel healthy for women in particular. So the basketball players and everyone, it's incumbent on them, because in regular society, there are guardrails to keep people from acting like they're still idiots, but they're much less likely to be an idiot to your face than from their computer.
Well, Bob and Matt, I don't know if you guys did this. When I was younger, I had a bulletin board, and any article that came out about me that was negative, up on the bulletin board. That was my motivation.
Well, I was getting I was getting treatment before games, looking for negative comments. Like, I used it as motivation.
That's my thing. So if that's your habit, you can't just turn that spigot off when all of a sudden your bulletin board, now the bandwidth of it is expanded exponentially.
The really complicated part of this, and it is a deeper issue and one for a long time, is if you look at that stuff, you cannot allow it to define you. If you're allowing every person with access to Twitter to define how you view yourself, that's where the problem comes.
Yes.
And that's very easy to say when you're 52 years old, and probably not so easy when you're 18 or 19. I get it, Tom.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports, highlights, and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.